Shadow Minister Katie Lamb.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister for advance sight of her statement. The girls we are talking about, Mr. Speaker, are predominantly white. The men who preyed on them were predominantly Muslim, generally either from Pakistan or of Pakistani heritage. Will the Minister accept that, in many cases, these crimes were racially and religiously aggravated? There is no question that the state has failed these children time and again. Take the case of Anna from Bradford. Vulnerable and in residential care, at the age of 14, she made repeated reports of abuse to social workers who were responsible for her. But just the following year, aged 15, she married her abuser in a traditional Islamic wedding ceremony. Far from stepping in to stop it, her social worker was aghast. The authorities then arranged for her to be fostered by her abuser's parents. The British people deserve to know the truth. What darker truths does the suffering of these girls reveal about this country? And why won't the government find out?
Before we go on, do me a small favor and hit that subscribe button. More than 98% of you watching still aren't subscribed. It won't cost you anything, not even a single penny. Have you subscribed yet? Thank you so much.
I thank the Honourable Lady. I think it's a shame that she only referred to one sort of victim when the statement is clearly about all victims, of which there should be no hierarchy. I understand the sense of anger and urgency over the issue from the Honourable Lady. None of this is her fault. She wasn't there at the time, but she works with the shadow ministers who sat in offices where I now sit, who did not lift a single finger when it came to the J inquiry on any of the recommendations it contained. It's going to take work, and I very much welcome her joining me, unlike for the years I was doing it, when the current Shadow Home Secretary never bothered.
Now listen closely, because what erupted this week is one of those raw, unsettling, emotional flashpoints that won't just fade into the background by next Thursday. Picture it: a packed committee room, cameras rolling, a petition with hundreds of thousands of signatures pushed under MPs' noses, and then a survivor's story, read out loud, a story so chilling it freezes the room. A vulnerable British girl in state care, reportedly groomed and forced into what campaigners describe as an Islamic wedding at Just Kins, a social worker allegedly present, a local authority accused of catastrophic failure, communities furious. Campaigners expected united outrage, a demand for urgent inquiries. What they didn't expect, and what exploded online within hours, was Jess Phillips being accused of looking away, of failing to respond when the victim's story was put directly to MPs. Those campaigners walked into Westminster hoping for support. What they say they walked out with was silence. The clip is short, grainy, impossible to ignore. The victim's words read out, the room dead still. Then Jess Phillips, shifting in her seat and moving on as if nothing had landed. That brief moment lit the fuse. Within the hour, Jess Phillips ignores victim trended everywhere. Commentators debated tone, intention, optics. Citizens who already doubted politicians felt vindicated. Their skepticism turned into viral fury. This matters because it isn't only about one MP's reaction. It's a flashpoint that exposes a deeper distrust between survivors of systemic failure and the political class that talks about protection from behind bulletproof glass. The emotional punchline is brutal. A child in the state's care, allegedly re-traumatized, while the professionals around her failed, and an elected representative who critics say didn't meet the moment when the plea for accountability was voiced. The fallout was immediate. Opposition MPs demanded answers. Why didn't Phillips intervene? Why wasn't the victim's account made the focus? Her defenders insisted committee rules are messy, multiple MPs were speaking, and the clip lacked context. But context loses every time to a viral moment. Outside Parliament, protesters gathered. Placards read, "Protect our girls," and "No more silence." Community groups, veterans, residents all calling for inquiries into children's social care failures. The Home Office and Department for Education scrambled out statements promising reviews, repeating familiar lines: safeguarding is a priority, cases will be examined, protections will be strengthened. Meanwhile, campaign groups, long-standing charities and new grassroots collectives demanded statutory reviews, transparency around foster placements, mandatory reporting rules, and proper training for social workers. Social media erupted. Ek is split into two camps, those saying Phillips avoided the story to prevent tension, and those claiming she's out of touch with the realities faced in some communities. TikTok spliced the clip into emotional reactions, some furious, some tearful, some cold and analytical. Influencers on every side amplified the moment for traction. The media landscape turned savage. Tabloids bled betrayal and outrage. Broadsheets analysed social care budgets, the scale of forced marriage, and the messy intersection of race, religion, and state failure. International human rights groups issued statements condemning forced marriage. Lawyers in the US and Canada compared Britain's child protection systems to their own. Diaspora communities called for justice while warning against blanket stereotyping. That international pressure made British politicians nervous. This wasn't only outrage, it was diplomatic heat. The emotional contrast driving the anger is stark. Ordinary people, social workers stretched thin, foster carers doing their best, neighbours dealing with consequences versus elites, policymakers, PR teams drafting talking points. Public frustration had been simmering for months over abuse cases, slow protection systems, and gutted social care budgets. So when Jess Phillips, known for championing women's issues, appeared indifferent, many took it as betrayal. Campaigners highlighted a small cluster of cases where girls in care were allegedly coerced into marriages with older men of South Asian heritage. They argue the state repeatedly missed warning signs and sometimes enabled abuse through broken systems. The Home Office has previously admitted failures, but charities say responses remain patchy and underfunded. But technical failures don't go viral. Human stories do. And here, the story is shattering. A teenager groomed, married off, and failed by those meant to protect her. Politically, this is brutal. Labour already faces pressure on many fronts. Every headline painting the party as weak on child protection is a wound. Critics say leaders must show immediate empathy. Hesitation is disastrous optics. For Conservatives and smaller parties, the moment is ammunition. If Labour cannot protect vulnerable children, how can they govern? But policy is thornier than politics. Forced marriage cases sit between criminal law, family law, immigration, and child protection. Heavy-handed measures can backfire, push victims into hiding, or criminalise the wrong people. That's the dilemma. MPs, skirted as the clip of Jess Phillips, went viral. How to respond with urgency without causing harm. Government ministers announced reviews, new training, guidance, helplines, familiar promises, critics say. Charities demanded statutory reform, mandatory reporting, independent case reviews, national tracking to prevent children being moved into dangerous placements. On the ground, the response was raw. Charities set up emergency funds, communities held street meetings. Faith leaders hosted, tense but important, dialogues to prevent polarization and protect children without demonizing entire communities. Those conversations were heated, emotional, and absolutely necessary. The clip also exposed how fragile political trust has become. One moment sparks a national storm. MPs accuse each other of posturing. Media dives into overdrive. Reforms drown in noise. Behind the scenes, advisors scramble, task forces, emergency funding, independent inquiries, but all require time and budgets. The public doesn't want delays. International observers urged restraint, protect victims, ensure confidentiality, pursue specialized prosecutions where warranted, and avoid scapegoating whole communities. These nuances were mostly lost in the headlines. Here's the cliffhanger. If Parliament fails to respond meaningfully, protests will swell, families may file legal actions, public opinion will deliver its own verdict. But overreaction risks criminalising victims or inflaming tensions, careers, charities, and community relations hang in the balance. So, what should you watch next? First, a clear, direct statement from Jess Phillips, not just PR lines, but real accountability. Second, Home Office and Education Department updates, concrete dates, concrete actions. Third, community-led responses. Will local mosques, churches and charities work together on prevention? Fourth, legal developments, judicial reviews or civil claims could reshape the entire issue. To be blunt, this is bigger than one clip. It asks whether Britain protects its most vulnerable and whether politicians show real empathy when it matters. Symbolic moments matter. They shape trust, reveal priorities, and tell survivors whether the system hears them. A British teenager's devastating account, allegedly groomed and forced into marriage while in state care, has triggered a national crisis after campaigners accused Jess Phillips of ignoring the plea for justice. The viral moment sparked protests, political clashes, international concern, and urgent demands for structural reform. This isn't a tidy policy debate. It's raw human damage laid bare, and it requires more than spin. Was Jess Phillips's reaction a brief lapse or a symptom of a deeper problem in Parliament? Should MPs push immediate statutory changes, or is there a risk of rushed, harmful laws? Who should lead reform ministers, independent commissions, or communities? And how do we ensure victims stay at the centre, not pushed to the sidelines? Drop your thoughts below. Be honest, be respectful. Share this with someone who cares about child protection. And subscribe for the on-the-ground follow-up. Every FOI, every hearing, every community meeting as this story unfolds.